The week before pageant. 'Twas the week before pageant, and amongst the girls
the halos were flying mid starks and light curls,
the halls were bedecked with Yule log and tree,
in hopes that the merriest of Christmases would be.
Miss Cowles in her tan coat, Mrs. Eastman with purse,
had just scurried off to All Saints to rehearse for the pageant of beauty and splendor and cheer,
to make it the best that will ever be here. Mrs. Coleman was disturbed
about all sorts of things, while the pages were almost
as large as the king's. And what to our greatest amazement came next,
but the loss of her voice, which greatly did vex
Mrs. Eastman, who certainly could not lead, the glee club was in the direst need.
Finally the day of pageant did come, all went so well, everybody had fun.
Betsy Robinson and Katie Schwarzschild.
Pageant is one of the oldest traditions collegiate still today performs. A pageant of some kind has always been performed at collegiate since 1915 when the school was founded. In the 20s and 30s, pageant was formed by junior and senior girls. It eventually went to a whole school, kindergarten to 12th grade production that was held in the assembly room.
As the pageant changed, so did the venue. Pageant had to keep moving to bigger churches to accommodate the growing audience size. The progression went from being performed on campus to the Grace Covenant Church, to the Evangelical Lutheran Church, to the St. James Church, and finally to All Saints Church, where it has been held ever since. The pageant moved to its final location of All Saints in 1960 when the Collegiate School for Girls moved to Moreland Road and changed to the Country Day School.
The pageant has always been a traditional nativity scene and was originally called the Pageant of Nativity. Later, girls shortened to the pageant. Eventually, in 1940, under the direction of Mrs. Flippin, the pageant was established and was put into the format it is held in today. Something different about the pageant is that it has no speaking parts, something that most pageants have. Actions are mimed by the girls participating and narrated by the balcony chorus made of 7th and 8th graders in the Glee Club.
Some of the props and costumes are still used in present pageants, like a frankincense and myrrh box and a cloth of gold that Miss Flippin brought with her from the American school in Egypt. The Mary costume is also part of the pageant tradition that has not changed since the 40s. There have been 3 main pageant directors since the establishment in the 40s: Mrs. Catherine Flippin, Mrs. Julia Williams, and Miss Carol Herod. The very first musical director of the pageant was Miss Adeline Cowles, later known as Mrs. Cox, who was noted to be part of Collegiate's harmonies, set in the 50 years of Collegiate echoes from 1915 to 1965.
The very first Madonna in 1940 was elected on her integrity and kindness. The Madonna still today voted on her kindness and is a huge honor to receive. The Madonna was and still is elected by the upper school girls, but in the 40s, the decision had to be teacher approved. Ann Hampton Sutton was the very first elected Madonna in 1940.
The music has mostly been the same since the 60s. O come all ye faithful, O come, Emmanuel. Come thou long-expected Jesus, what strangers are these? Angels we have heard on high, adoration of the Magi, joy to the world, and sing we Noel, have been used since the beginning. A few songs are switched in and out on a yearly basis. The music is an integral part of the tradition, and one that returning alumni can easily remember.
The pageant casting has also been the same since the establishment under Mrs. Flippin. The 5th graders are cherubs, pages, and train bearers. 6th graders are the village children or shepherd children. The 7th and 8th graders are in the balcony chorus. The freshmen are adult villagers, the prophet, the centurion, and the tax collector. The sophomores are the adult shepherds, and the juniors are exempt because of brunch, unless they are in the glee club, and the seniors are angels, Mary, Joseph, and the kings.
The set is also part of the tradition. 14 Christmas cedar trees fill the church. An ad is put out in search of anyone that might have any trees to give. Then on the day of lessons and carols, one of the boys' traditions, Arthur Johnson from the physical plant, picks up the trees and takes them to the church. Also, leaves from magnolia trees, pine roping, and white pine and spruce are used to create the pageant atmosphere. It also takes at least 30 teachers a night to put on the performance and make sure the characters are dressed appropriately.
Pageant is one of the oldest traditions at Collegiate. Since the establishment of the pageant under Mrs. Flippin, the pageant has not changed much and remained intact. The pageant we see today is similar to the original ones in the 40s. 50 years of Collegiate echoes from 1915 to 1965 quotes, "The angels high in the background, the cherubs climbing into the windows or walking in the aisles with tiny candles, the shadow of the shepherds and the Holy Family, and the tiny kings and pages moving in majesty down the aisles are never to be forgotten."